I'm based in Hong Kong at the Chinese University of Hong Kong Business School, or CUHK Business School. So here I'm just going to give a very quick introduction of some of the fintech programs in education at our business school. So I would say that our business school started offering fintech courses about 5 or 6 years ago, when the fintech industry, grew to become more and more important. As of now, we have various courses, offered through various programs, as you can see in the list here, in MBA, EMBA, some of our master's programs and undergraduate education. We have offered quite a lot of fintech-related courses, such as fintech entrepreneurship, digital transformation, database, and big data management, to name a few. We also offered this undergraduate dual degree in partnership with the Faculty of Engineering. Now, at our university, the Faculty of Engineering is the lead faculty for fintech education, and the business school holds a supporting position in providing fintech courses in various programs of the university. So we collaborate very closely with the Faculty of Engineering, because we find that, while fin and tech, fin is finance, that is a business discipline, and tech is technology that is more related to engineering. So we feel that the collaboration between these two faculties will be very, very important to advance fintech education forward. So just last year, we launched an undergraduate double degree program by the business school and the Faculty of Engineering. So students who study in this program, will end up getting a bachelor's in financial technology and also a bachelor's degree in business administration. And among some of the courses that they could take at both faculties, as you can see here on the left panel, that's a listing of the courses offered by the Faculty of Engineering, and the right panel are the courses offered by the business school. So students will really get a taste of both the technical side of fintech, as well as the more business oriented courses geared towards fintech. Now, we find that fintech is a young emerging field that is quite different from traditional subjects, and it's very difficult to use textbooks, right, to teach fintech. So I guess in many of our programs and courses that we offer, we try to collaborate with industry partners. And here you can see a list of companies that we collaborate with to offer business practicum projects, or sometimes we invite speakers from these companies to the classroom to share with students their experience in starting their companies, some of the issues that they face, from the perspective of technology or business related issues in the fintech ecosystem. Here are some of the, now you're probably familiar with some of the prominent names here, like Microsoft and Amazon Web Services, or AWS, but some of the other names like WeLab Bank. Now WeLab Bank is really a homegrown fintech company, a virtual bank that is in Hong Kong. ZA Insure, Bowtie, these are digital insurance companies in Hong Kong. One Degree is another virtual insurance company in Hong Kong, and SenseTime. SenseTime is a AI company that got publicly listed early this year. It was started by a professor at the Faculty of Engineering at CUHK in 2014, and has developed into a very successful AI company in just about 8 years of time. And now we collaborate very closely also with some government agencies like the Hong Kong Science and Technology Park and Cyberport. These are government agencies that provide funding and incentives and some other support, to incubate and help startup companies in Hong Kong to get funding and also to succeed in their business venture. We also organize the FinTech conference annually, and just 2 weeks ago, it was the Hong Kong FinTech Week, and our university participated in that during the FinTech Week to organize the CUHK Conference on Financial Technology. And the theme this year is a new development in digital economy, metaverse, Web3, and beyond. We invited dozens of industry speakers and also esteemed professors to share their insights and views on the development of the digital economy, particularly in the areas of metaverse, blockchain, and Web3. We attracted over 500 participants from industry, academia, and the government worldwide in this conference. We have also set up what we call the CUHK Engineering FinTech Applied Research Academy, or CFAR in short, to promote FinTech education for the business community. So this is again a collaboration with industry partners between our university and industry partners. So we organize, FinTech seminars every 2 months or so. And most of these seminars are freely available to the public, so anyone can join these seminars. Some of the topics that we have covered in the past, as you can see in this slide here, include the role of API and data in FinTech ecosystem, transparency and artificial intelligence, central bank digital currency, and we have got an upcoming seminar in 2 weeks' time. Actually, So on this page, you'll see that there's this upcoming seminar, FinTech in Algo Trading and Asset Management. It will be held on the 7th of December. So if you happen to be in Hong Kong, you're more than welcome to join this seminar. So again, this seminar is free and is available to the public. So I think overall, as you can see, I think the approach of the FinTech education at Chinese University is that we collaborate a lot with industry partners. We understand that this subject is very practical, and so we need the collaboration between academics and industry partners to provide something that is useful and practical for our students. So I guess I will stop my sharing here, and then I can move on. Perhaps maybe there will be more questions later.
Thank you. That's great. It's nice to see such a portfolio of activities that you're doing there. Let's switch now to Ayman Ismail at the Venture Lab at the American University in Cairo. Ayman.
Thank you so much, and good morning or evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you. I wanted to build on what Sean has just mentioned and just tell you a little bit about the FinTech context, what's happening in Egypt and the Middle East and Africa region broadly. And then second, what's happening in the American University in Cairo. And then third, a little bit about our flagship program at AUC Venture Lab, and Lena will tell you a little bit more details about this. So a lot of what's happening in Egypt is driven by a financial inclusion agenda. If you look at the country, probably 4 or 5 years ago, somewhere between 10 to 20% of the population, of the adult population, were part of the formal financial system, whether through relationships with the banks or with other financial institutions. And it became a big part of the government agenda to increase that participation. We have several key drivers like the increase in mobile penetration. Now we have more than 100 million SIM cards in Egypt, more than the population of the country itself. Everybody's included in that space. So we're building on this and trying to add more people to the system. And I think now we're more than 50% of the adult population that have a relationship, and a big part of it goes into, is driven by the fintech space. So if we look at what happened, the very first layer was about building the digital payment infrastructure, whether through the banking system, mobile wallets, other apps that are related to cards and payments, acceptance like point of sale machines, POS machines, and other related things. And we have a huge penetration in that space. I think now we have more than 30 million mobile wallets. We have a huge increase, about tripling of the number of POS machines in the past 3 years, and so on. The second stage where we're starting to see right now is building additional use case on terms of, on top of that, lending, buy now, pay later, consumer lending, working financing, whether services to the consumers or to the micro, small, and medium enterprises. And this is growing. And a lot of the startups that we're seeing in that space are focusing on this. The third stage, which we're starting to see, but I think this is going to be the trend moving forward, is embedded finance application, where you're getting traditional businesses adding a financing or a fintech component or a lending component or a digital payment component to their businesses and trying to reach a larger audience in that space. What are the enablers for this? Three things. On the government and policy side, we're seeing a lot of new regulations, new fintech law, new central bank law, a big drive from the government and the policy side. Second, on the investment side, we're seeing a proliferation of venture capital investment in that space. We have 3 new funds that are focused on financial technologies, include Disruptech and Camel, that launched in the past couple of years, in addition to other venture capital funds that have this as part of the mandate, plus a lot of the regional and global funds that are getting into that space. And we're seeing a substantial flow of capital into fintech startups. And the third is the enablers, the ecosystem players, and those are where we belong as a university and many other organizations in the space that are helping in building the pipeline of startups and also helping in building the talent pool. And that includes people providing entrepreneurship centers, accelerators, incubators, support mechanisms, capacity building, and so on. So this is broadly the overall picture in this space. We're seeing a huge increase in the number of fintech startups. 5-6 years ago, when we started working in that space, it was very little, kind of a handful of startups. Right now, we've got several hundred startups that are growing in that space and more that we see coming. Now, from our perspective as a university, as the American University in Cairo, we started pushing the entrepreneurship space, but now we have actually a lot of activities related to the fintech space in specific. For example, we have a Master of Science in Finance with a fintech specialization. In the undergraduate programs, I've been introducing several fintech topics in the entrepreneurship courses. We had a competition sponsored by the Central Bank of Egypt that is actually pushing the projects of the students, connecting them with the banks, creating internships around them. We've done several hackathons on InsurTech, digital payments, and so on. We also, next semester, I'm introducing a dedicated course to fintech that's going to be also in partnership with the Central Bank of Egypt. And once that course is done, we're actually going to transfer that knowledge to other universities and academic institutions to roll it out so that we can actually create the culture in that space. Now, the third point, and that's the important part, is getting to AUC Venture Lab. AUC Venture Lab is a startup accelerator that we created at the university 10 years ago. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary in 2023. We have, this is now currently our 19th cohort. And the program has graduated more than 300 startups that are tech-enabled, innovation-driven, with a variety of sectors. And 6 years ago, we started getting into the fintech space. We saw the potential. We built partnerships with one of the leading banks in Egypt, CIB, the Commercial International Bank, as well as IFC, the World Bank, International Finance Corporation, MasterCard, and also we're working on a partnership with the Central Bank of Egypt right now. What we're trying to do is to build and support the accelerating the infrastructure, the startups, the pipeline of startups in this space in Egypt, providing a lot of knowledge, connection, access to investment, and access to the community. To date, we're very proud that around 1/3 of the fintech startups in Egypt came out of our program, and we're trying to expand that program and build a lot of assets inside it, knowledge assets, understanding of the technology, deeper understanding of the regulation, and kind of deeper connections with the key players that you would want to partner with if you are a successful startup in that space. So I'm going to pass the floor to Lina, who's going to tell us a little bit about what we're doing in this program and how this program is supporting the entrepreneurs. Lina.
Thank you, Dr. Ayman. Hi, everyone. I'm Lina Zalat. I'm the Associate Director at the AEC Venture Lab. And building on what Dr. Ayman was just talking about, I'm going to tell you more about what we do at the AEC Venture Lab FinTech Accelerator. So the accelerator has been established in 2015, and the FinTech one, and it's a 4-month equity-free program that supports FinTech startups by offering specialized business knowledge, technology support, and networking opportunities with market leaders. What we do, we try and focus on supporting the entrepreneurs with business design skills, growth hacking techniques, and investment readiness support through a number of activities and services such as operational coaching, expert mentorship, access to an investment clinic, peer-to-peer support, and the showcasing and networking opportunities. By the end of the 4 months, the startups are ready with a viable business model to go to market, and usually have a big demo day where they are connected with potential investors and business leaders to take their businesses forward. As Dr. Ayman mentioned before, we're corporate sponsored. So we started the FinTech Accelerator with one of the leading banks in Egypt, which is CIB. We're also supported by the IFC and the World Bank and MasterCard, all of which are key players in the FinTech industry. We also try to connect our startups to all potential stakeholders that can help them grow their businesses. So for example, we make sure that the startups are connected with the Central Bank of Egypt and other financial regulators to make sure that the startups know which licensing and which ways to go forward, especially from the regulatory part. And to date, we have more than 50 fintech startups graduated from our program, and with more than 300,000 users, and that goes back to the financial inclusion part. These 50 startups have raised more than $3.5 million in investment, and that's it. That's what we've been trying to do. We also try to build the pipeline. So other than the accelerator program, we also try to build a pipeline in different verticals. So we try and do hackathons, ideations, activities that go a little bit early, just to make sure that we have like a pipeline of different innovations in this industry. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Ayman and Lina. It's so nice to see that direct impact on the local community there through what you're doing at the lab. Marcos, let's turn the floor to you.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for the invitation and the opportunity to take part in this panel and the discussion. So my name is Marcos Zachariadis. I hold the FinTech chair at the University of Manchester at Alliance Manchester Business School. And actually, next Wednesday, we're launching formally the Center for Financial Technology Studies, which is one of the initiatives at the university, which we've been planning for a while now. COVID obviously kind of was something that we had to delay the launch for the center, but now we're in a position to do it. And our part of the mission at the University of Manchester around the FinTech agenda is essentially twofold. So the first part is, of course, to promote and pursue high caliber and high-end research in terms of the role of financial technologies in the industry. And number two is to try to educate and formulate an agenda around the education of the future generation of financial services analysts, decision makers, regulators, entrepreneurs, investors, and so on and so forth. And we have these kind of duality in terms of our mission, because we truly believe that impactful education always has to come from rigorous research in academia and in science. Our center is multidisciplinary, so we have a lot of people participating from across the university. So we have people participating from all parts of science and business studies and sciences at the business school and beyond, for example, from accounting and finance, innovation, entrepreneurship, management science, computer science, sociology, economics, and so on and so forth. And we approach the research in terms of matrix basis. So there's the different fields and disciplines within science, but also there's different technologies that each one of us has specialty on and interrogates. For example, from AI and open APIs to distributed ledgers, Internet of Things applications, mobile computing, cloud services, and so on and so forth. Across the third dimension, which we see are the different subsectors within financial services. And this can be anything, from money and central banking services to payment systems, wealth management, insurance services, market provisioning, lending, traditional banking, and so on and so forth. So this is the way we approach the research, but this is also the way we approach the education. So over the past couple of years, where we, first initiated this very big kind of fintech initiative at the university, we've managed to develop different courses across the many different parts of business studies and other sciences. But also at the different levels of education. So to give you an example, we started with undergraduate programs, which are being offered to different degrees at the business school we have. And in particular, this one is quite popular within the finance students at the undergraduate level. Then we went on and developed courses for at the MSc level. So we have fintech electives, particularly around financial data analytics and AI in finance, which is being offered to students across MSc, for example, in business analytics, or MSc in data science, which is also one of the masters that we run in collaboration between the business school and computer science school. And then at the ABA executive education level as well. So the course I'm teaching at the ABA, to give you an example, which is called Fintech, Digital Banking and Blockchain Technologies. We started 3 years ago. This is the third year with this run. So I just arrived back from Dubai in delivering our fourth cohort for this year, which has about 120 students for MBA programs. And we're developing 2 more executive education courses. One is in strategies and economics around open finance, which is one of the topics we do a lot of research on at the business school. And the second one, which is under development to be launched in 2023, is around decentralized finance and blockchain technologies and the future of money. So we believe that one of the missions of the school has to be very close to what the industry needs. And we know for a fact that the UK government's report and review, which is well known here in the UK as the Khalifa Review, points out specifically to try and reskill and upskill the industry right now in terms of fintech skills, but also train the next generation of people who will be taking part within the financial services industry. And I think we're very close to delivering on that mission, and we're very positive and happy to be able to contribute back to the industry. Actually, the Invest in Manchester is the only that has explicitly been mentioned as part of the Khalifa Review, the government's review, in terms of fintech contributions from academia. So we're quite happy that we're able to play a role in this. To close with, I just wanted to say that we're also work very closely with the industry as well. So the University of Manchester has done a strategic academic partnership with Innovate Finance, which is the largest fintech body here in the UK. and also are about to launch a few research-oriented collaborations with some of the other major players within the financial services industry. And one particular very interesting initiative we recently launched is the UK FinTech Academic Network, which is a collaboration between about 22 academics across the UK from 13 universities, including, of course, the University of Manchester, which is chairing this initiative for the time being. But other universities like Cambridge, Oxford, Imperial, UCL, King's College London, and so on and so forth. So we're proud to also play kind of a really role in bringing the community, the academic community here in the UK together to respond more closely to the issues and problems that the industry identifies as key topics that universities can contribute further. So that is in a nutshell. I'm looking forward to our discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcos. You've really pointed out how this topic, which might be so narrowly thought about, is actually touching so many other different disciplines and areas of the university. And I think that's a nice transition to the first question I have for you all, which is quite broad. We'll start big and broad. I'm curious what you think will make the biggest impact on financial markets going forward. And this could be at the global level or in your particular community. But is it the underlying technology? Is it the way they're accessed and used? Ayman, you mentioned financial inclusion agenda in Egypt. Is it the regulatory side of things? What do you see as being most impactful going forward? And Marcos, why don't you kick us off with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Julianne. So we have, and it's part of the lectures I'm actually doing, I start from exactly this question. What is it that has a great impact going forward for the financial services sector? And of course, there's different dynamics within the sector, but we really point out to 3 or 4 pillars that will bring about change in financial services. So of course, one is the demand and appetite and changing demographics. What are the future demands of in various industries, and how financial services can respond to this? But of course, at the very basic level, technology plays a huge role in terms of financial services transformation. Regulation plays a huge role. Is of course, as we know, all financial services is a heavily regulated industry. So whatever changes we see in regulation is, it's super important to understand and be able to reflect and navigate. And the last but not least is also the overall market structure and organizational structure of the different kind of stakeholders and players within the industry. And that has to do, I think, more about the business models and, the way organizations and businesses operate at any given time, as well as, the markets in terms of how competition is forming the entire industry. So we talk a lot, for example, about within our research for vertical disintegration, how overall, banking and financial services architecture has shifted because, of the different technologies or regulations that are taking place. And all these different dynamics, I think they're also communicating with one another. So regulation would impact technology and demand, technology would impact potentially regulation and demand or market architecture, organizational arrangements, and so it's quite complex, but we as researchers, we feel obliged to kind of try and investigate further how these dynamics kind of shape one another and will shape potentially overall the industry. And just to give you an example, we've been doing a lot of studies around data sharing models and frameworks in financial services, which originate mainly for regulations. But it's really important to understand how the needs of the various demographics and various kind of organizations that shape the demand overall will actually be a driver to invest more in these technologies and regulations, but also how these regulations at a data sharing level, for example, will have an impact on the business models of organizations. We look at a lot the economics of data sharing to understand more about how they're going to transfer business models at the organizational level. And these, we've published several papers, and chapters in books, and are about to hopefully publish in the next few months, be able to announce, our publications in some of the top academic journals in the economics of innovation, etc. So I think, this is kind of a way you approach this.
Great, thanks. Lena, other thoughts on that?
Actually, no, I'll let Dr. Ayman give his input on this one.
Julian, I think I definitely would agree with Marcos, but I think if we step back a little bit, definitely regulation, technology, consumer behavior, all of those changes are actually great drivers for the change in the fintech. But I think just go back to what do people do with those financial transactions? What are the different use cases and applications? The first wave was, we're doing a lot of things in a very cumbersome, expensive way. Let's try to do them faster, better, and cheaper. So this is when we're starting movement of money, transacting, transfers, better ways of lending, and so on. And I think this is a lot of what's happening today is about this. And that's part of the financial inclusion agenda. It was very cumbersome or expensive to move $1 from me to Marcos. It used to entail a line digitally. The transaction fees are a lot of very in-house or technology things driven by banks and other financial intermediaries, financial institutions that can make these transactions better, faster, and cheaper. The more interesting part, which are the things that I think are just starting to kick off, doing things that we were not able to do before. So for example, playing with digital assets. We were not able to do that. Now we're starting to figure out different ways to play, whether with NFTs or blockchains or whatever. And it's about literally thinking about new business models or use cases that were not there before, that we were not thinking about, and trying to push those into actually interesting part of the economy. And I think a lot of the innovations are happening in that space. And that's the area that I would be curious about. In a place like Egypt, we're mostly in the financial inclusion, doing the transactions better, faster, and cheaper. And that's really important because that increases the efficiency in the economy overall. But I will be very interested to see those new use cases, especially in emerging markets where you're trying to leapfrog some of the traditional infrastructure things like the credit card infrastructure, moving to other things. What you see what happened in China with WeChat and Alipay, and actually spreading financial inclusion with a very frugal innovation like QR codes. These are, for me, very interesting innovations that are transforming people's lives and going beyond the basis of what we're doing. So I would think about it in those two layers, and I'm very, very interested to see some of those kind of next generation things coming.
I am too. Xin-Meng, you mentioned earlier, characterized this as a young and emerging field. What do you see as having the biggest impacts going forward?
Right. So I guess I'm going to speak from Hong Kong's perspective. So Hong Kong, as you know, is a world financial center. And the government is very keen to maintain and to enhance Hong Kong's position as the as a global financial center. So I think two main areas that the government is investing a lot of time and effort in developing, for the future. One is, of course, fintech that we have been talking about today, and then the other space is green finance. Now, the overlap between these two sectors will be very interesting. So I see that there are actually some companies that are looking into green tech, for example. So innovations using a blockchain to monitor or to record, carbon credits, for example. That's just one very specific example of the overlap between the fintech industry and the green finance industry. I think the development in this area is one important and interesting growth driver for the economy in the future. And more on the fintech side, I think the Hong Kong government has already made quite a few announcements and implemented some initiatives. For example, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, which is the central bank in Hong Kong, announced a 2025 fintech strategy. And one of the key objectives is that all banks should go fintech, within the next decade or so. Now, they are also looking very closely into the development of virtual assets and CBDC, the central bank digital currency. And Hong Kong's version of a CBDC is the e-Hong Kong dollar. Just 2 weeks ago, during the Hong Kong FinTech Week, the government made a press release about Hong Kong's position, in developing virtual assets industry in Hong Kong in the future. Now, digital assets, and CBDC, digital currencies, and all this are obviously still very new, and I think Hong Kong overall is taking a pretty cautious approach, because there are still a lot of things, especially on the regulation side, that needs to be worked out. But I think looking at the progression of where the Hong Kong government is now in the last few years, you can feel that they are quite confident that this new field, digital assets, virtual assets, is going to become a mainstream asset class in the future. And so that's why they are, rolling out policies and new initiatives to promote these sectors in Hong Kong, albeit, in a pretty cautious way, to make sure that the regulations are there before, things are being implemented. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I want to switch now to education and get down to a little bit more of a practical level. I'm curious to hear from you all what you see as the primary need for fintech education in the community that your school is serving. Now, Xin-Meng, your slide earlier showed a mix of global companies and locally emerging companies that you're partnering with. And in fact, all of you mentioned the importance of those local or otherwise partnerships to what you're doing. What is your school's or your initiative's educational priorities related to fintech right now? Lena or Ayman?
Thank you, Julianne. Look, the challenge with fintech from an educational perspective is that you are at the intersection of three big topics that are really, really diverse. One is on the tech side, so you need to really understand what's happening in the technology. Second is on the regulatory side, and there are a lot of regulatory complexities that basically define the shape of the business. And the third is from the business model and business side in general. So if you want to have someone who really understands that space, you've got to have a good understanding of the three angles. There are people who come from the technical side, people who study computer science, computer engineering, and jump into that space, and they try to understand the other components. And there are people who come from the business side and also try to understand the other two components. Not seen many people coming from the legal or regulatory side, which is interesting. So from our side, working with the startups, we want to make sure that they're able to have the right set of information and also relationships in each one of those. The technical side, the financial sector infrastructure is very sophisticated, complicated, and different from other parts because you're dealing with banks, other clearing houses, security requirements, huge cybersecurity requirements, and so on. So it's not traditional, and you need a very different quality and depth. The regulatory part is extremely complex. In our country, you've got multiple regulators, and just figuring out which regulator you're under is quite an accomplishment. Whether you are regulated or unregulated, it's also quite a challenge. And figuring out where from the kind of the web of regulations can you play, and if there are interesting ways that can get you there. Business models are probably the outcome. People start with ideas, but it's probably the outcomes of that. So we try to make sure that for the entrepreneurs that we have, we're bringing the three angles together and providing it in kind of an educational part, but also in a practical applied part.
Thank you. Xin-Meng, thoughts on that? What are your priorities there at CUHK?
Yeah, so I guess as I mentioned earlier, to Hong Kong is positioning itself as the global financial center, and so the universities play a very important role in developing, nurturing the future talent in the digital economy. So I think adding on to the points by Eamon and Marcos, the collaboration between academia and industry is of utmost importance, because fintech is such a practical, business-oriented subject, and so we really need to collaborate with strongly with industry partners. And I guess maybe one challenge that many universities are facing is to hire enough qualified fintech professors, because it is such a new field. It is not a traditional academic subject like economics, that has been around for decades. Getting enough professors, finding enough professors who can teach this subject in the university is quite challenging. And that is why, again, we need to work with industry partners, to invite some industry practitioners, to come in our classrooms as adjunct lecturers and professors to help us conduct some of the courses. I think the other area that I see is also the closer collaboration between different faculties, because fintech is such a, it's really a cross discipline subject. So earlier I mentioned, the close collaboration between our Faculty of Engineering and the Business School to bring the fintech education forward at our university. But increasingly, we're also trying to work with the Faculty of Law, Faculty of Medicine, for example. Because we see that some of these technologies actually are relevant to all the faculties in the university. So specifically in the FinTech conference that we hosted this year, we have, we invited speakers from the Faculty of Law, Faculty of Medicine, Faculty of Engineering, Faculty of Science, to join force together, because we really think that the collaboration between different faculties will create, some interesting synergies in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Xin-Meng. I see that question or that issue echoed by Wendy in the chat, asking about how educators can also become capacitated to other fields that they're not originally coming from. Marcos, your thoughts on what's next for education?
Yeah, thank you. Just to second what the other said, I think I agree, of course, pointing out into my short introduction, I think there's a need to have a multidisciplinary kind of multidimensional view in order to approach any fintech topic and any fintech research question. So, you need to approach it from the different kind of points of view in terms of the science, right? You need to approach it and the different point of view in terms of the different technologies you have. But one dimension that really need to stretch here is also the knowledge of the context. And I think what a lot of the academics have come across kind of are lacking is very deep understanding of how financial services already work, right? So for example, you appreciate the applications of blockchain technology within the payment sector, you need to understand how technologies are really happening right now. And for that, I think research is really important. I can't imagine teaching or trying to put together a course without having done rigorous research about, how all these regulations, new technologies, etc., would really affect a particular part of financial services, and have a really good understanding of that part of financial services before you go about and present yourself in class to be able to explain, how these things work in their totality. And I think that would be my first point. And secondly, also, I find that I agree with the fact that you need to have multiple or different kinds of academics with different backgrounds in order to be able to teach fintech, right? One person from, one particular discipline, for example, finance, would never be enough to be able to deliver enough knowledge to students. And depending on the program that you're about to deliver these courses, expertise and background should also vary. Because of course you can deliver some good understanding of the different technologies that one may introduce in finance, but you also have to have some background how the difference technology is going to be impact from the qualitative point of view, right? So how finance as a practice, as a profession will change, or how, the architecture, a business model of organization will change. And for that, you also need to have, knowledge about the economics and business model side, or the practice side, right? Or the contextual side. So I think, I agree that, having a multidimensional, multidisciplinary approach also is very necessary.
Great, thank you. And just as we think about going forward, I'd like to hear from each of you what you see as some of the biggest challenges, or maybe one challenge that you're focused on right now, overcoming with this, or maybe even a particular gap or challenge that you face that you have a story for how you've overcome it that might be relevant for those who are here listening today. Sin Meng, let's start with you this time.
I guess I probably already mentioned this point just now, which is the difficulty of hiring sufficient qualified professors in the fintech field, because fintech is, a very unique subject compared to some of the traditional academic subjects, where well, we have as you know, the universities have this tenure system, and so professors, they have to publish, in some of the top journals in order to get the tenure. And then for fintech subject, sometimes it may be a little bit difficult to publish, and because some of the topics are so practical, so business oriented, that is the academic element is not as may not be sufficient for them to publish in traditional academic journals. So we see this gap, between the traditional academic subjects and this new fintech subject, and so how to bridge these two together. How to enable professors to work on relevant research topics that they could publish in the journals, and at the same time, making sure that they're also working on something that is relevant to the students, that they can teach in the classroom, and make sure that the students are getting the right skills in the market. I think bridging these two is an important challenge faced by a lot of universities. So again, we have to find, we haven't really found a solution. I don't think we have a good solution to this problem yet. But we are just trying to work with more industry partners to figure things out, to see if there is a middle road, that we can take, in terms of doing good academic research, but then at the same time making sure that the research is practical enough that they would be able to nurture, the future talent, with the right digital skills to work in the industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcos. You've been nodding your head as Sin Meng was talking. What do you have to add to what he was saying?
Absolutely agree. The challenge of balancing, research with education has been quite real, and I think. As Sin Meng said as well, fintech is a new field. So trying to find these research questions that will actually make sense for, research-oriented activities, but also to respond to practitioners on their questions they might have, and be able to even educate them on these questions. I think it's quite a real challenge. I think universities at some point will need to balance between, how much they weigh into giving a big role for academics to create impact and educate industry, and how much they want to see in terms of research. I mean, it's the holy grail is to be able to do both, but I think we increasingly see some separation between the two, which is one model one could take forward. But I'm very big believer of actually education that really comes from rigorous academic research, because I think it's our role as academics not to just pick up a textbook or, read up and learn a few things by speaking to some practitioners and be able to share that in class, but also to provide the academic point of view, the research-based point of view, utilizing and leveraging theories that we have in economics and management science and strategy and entrepreneurship, and connect these with the fintech world, let's say, and be able to, educate students and allow students to interrogate these technologies, interrogate these new phenomena, more critically. And I think the value you get out of that is tremendous and very powerful. So I think it's a challenge, but we really need to push ourselves to deliver, I think, as academics.
Thank you. Lena, very practically speaking, in your work at the Venture Lab to support these companies and build that pipeline within Egypt, what would be most helpful to you in trying to fulfill the mission that you're trying to achieve?
Okay, so one of the challenges we're seeing right now is the concentration of fintech solutions in very specific areas. And this goes back to as well the role of education. So there's a vast opportunity out there for fintech solutions to solve a lot of problems, and at least in the Egyptian context. But we're still seeing a very concentrated and very specific solutions like payments, lending, things like that. So, and there's a lot more. Part of it is for the regulatory part of it, but another part of it is due to maybe the lack of resources about these options in technology and so on. So again, this is one of the things that we're seeing, and we try to work on it again from connecting corporates or industry experts with sharing the actual pains that they're having with the entrepreneurs or the innovators to find these new solutions. But again, education plays a very important role in that part as well. So.
Thank you, Lena. Ayman, last words.
Yes, I would echo the points about the challenge of working inside a university. And I think that speaks to Wendy's question as well. Inside the university, we're used to specific silos, traditional silos in schools and departments, and fintech by nature is interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary. We're used to focusing on specific type of publishing and academic research. Fintech by nature is also cutting edge. It needs a depth of local context. So I would strongly echo that part. From one side, I think one part that I fill this gap with is by focusing a lot on the practice and the industry partnerships. So having the depth in there, kind of getting your hands dirty in the field is really important. We have two of the most interesting startups, fintech startups, came out of my class. They were my students. I actually partnered with them, and now they're literally processing billions of dollars of transactions and serving. One of them is serving 25 million students in Egypt. And I learned so much working with the entrepreneurs and trying to understand how to actually get and build those companies. And I share a lot of that learning in the different classroom and different settings and with our partners. And that part for me is intellectually and personally satisfying and has got a lot of impact, but it has not helped me in terms of the support within the university. I mean, in terms of the formal recognition as part of our academic system. So we've got to have a parallel research track that gets you to reach the objectives that you have. And I think we need to rethink activities that are multidisciplinary, that fall through the cracks between the different schools and departments, and that are really cutting edge, that the traditional journals do not see it in the same way that they see traditional research that they're used to. And if we do that, we're going to get those types of people into our business schools, and our business schools are going to be more relevant to the local and global context. If we don't do that, then we're going to end up with the interesting things happening in different places. And I hate to see that. I would love to bring those interesting questions and people to be active inside our business schools, because that's how we remain relevant, and that's how we can bring our impact. I would love to see how universities are doing that.
Thank you. And well, thank you to all of our panelists today, Marcos, Lena, Sinmeng, Iman as well, for sharing your experiences and posing some really interesting threads for everyone here to think about. This is inspiring to think about all that could be achieved and accomplished through, an emerging focus on fintech. And then so many different angles were touched on, from a variety of degree programs. I heard mention of electives, non-degree programs, the community support, and the partnerships with the companies that really help get them off the ground and move forward with some new innovations. So there are so many entry points for those that are here that are just looking to begin stepping foot in this space, and so many next steps available for those that have already begun this journey that I look forward to what can happen. At GBSN, we're committed to helping to continue to create the connections that help you to learn from one another and grow with one another in this space. And we hope that you'll share with us what you'd like to see us help facilitate going forward. So Juliana Labelle, who worked so hard to bring us all together today, is going to drop her email in the chat. Feel free to just shoot her a note if you have ideas about, what you'd like, what topics you'd like to hear from in the future, or maybe something that you have that you would like to share that you think others might benefit from. So do feel free to email her. And now we'll go ahead and take a little bit of time in some smaller group discussions. This is just a chance to get to know some other individuals that you'll be randomly paired with in a group, and pose some questions to them, or share some of the things that you're working on as part of our community building and a learning effort. With that, I want to thank everyone for joining us. We'll send you to your rooms, and we'll depart from there. So this is the end of our formal program. Thank you again.